Alright, this week we're going to do the articulated version of the Honey Hole Leech. This one lengthens it out just a little bit, gives that little bit of articulation, gives you that S-swim sort of that you're after. We're just going to go right into this one. There's not a whole lot to explain that is new on this, other than the articulation that we're going to be working with. But on the back hook for this one, it's an MFC 7050. I'm going to stop it roughly at the midway point, and this back section is going to be the easiest thing that you've ever tied. Even if you don't have the dubbing brush, just the Marabou. If you've got 2 plumes of brown Marabou, that's all you're going to need to finish out this back half. It's just going to be basically a flapper tail. I'm going to take this, I'm going to tie in my dubbing brush, and I'm going to bring this forward. I'm going to half hitch, and that's a little too long to run the rotary with. And I'm just going to wrap this around all the way up to the front. This is going to be in brown and tan today. Brown being the more dominant color in this. Tan's going to be the undertone, so to speak. But you look at a lot of leeches, they're maybe, other than black, they're really not one solid color throughout. There's a lot of different speckles and different shades. I'm going to get one more wrap in there and call this good. Yep, I'm going to call that good right there. There we go. Really simple. Really simple. Like I said, even if you're just putting 2 plumes of Marabou in there, no different. The dubbing brushes, like I explained before on the Marabou, they kind of inherently have a little bit more bulk because you have the tag ends that are in there. So you're going to get a little more of a bump. And if you remember watching the single hook version that I did, I talked about the proportions, how it's thin in the back, you have that bump in the center, and then it's thin in the front. This is really going to be slender in that back section. This middle section, because like I said, some of the tag ends that are in there, I'll just peel those back a little bit more than normal. It's all going to get covered up anyhow. But this center section, like when you tie this with a dubbing brush, you can feel it. There's a bump right there. And when it's wet, it slicks down and it looks almost like a perfect leech imitation. Dry, it looks like just a ball of fuzz. But when you see this thing in the water, you compare it to a leech, it's almost identical. Almost identical. So, that is the back half on the 7050 size 4. Doesn't get much simpler than that. I'm going to wet those fibers down, get them out of my way, and I'm going to color up my thread. There we go. Oh, I'll find my articulation wire here. This is the 19 strand, 38 thousandths Beadalon that you see me use in most everything. That's going to be messy right there. That's not going to work. That's going to be messy. Get this out of there. I got some wire trapped in there, so it had it all sorts of twisted around. There we go. That's better. So now I got my wire. I just need one red bead, or whichever color you have. It's not really going to make a huge difference. Throw my bead on there, and our back hook's out of the vise. Bring the front bead on. This is back to the original size on the single hooked leech that I did a couple weeks back. It's a 7051, 7050 size one. To clarify that a little bit. 2, 3. Get one more wrap on there, and then I'm going to trim that out. There we go. 3 to 4 wraps of 75,000 or 35 thousandths lead wire. Where that 75 came from. 3 to 4 wraps. And touch that with the zap right in the front. Try not to get it too far back because you want it to wind up getting it stuck on your hand and getting your hand stuck to the hook and glue all over the place. It's just not good. Keep it toward the front. So there we go. This is a tungsten bead. This is obviously going to be one that I want to be more aggressive on the jig. More so of a winter or cold water pattern. If you start getting to where it's, you know, spring, early summer, late fall, to where the water temps haven't taken a dive yet and you want something that you can strip a lot faster, you can do a more aggressive jerk strip. Either go with a brass or no cone at all. And I'll try and do a video later on the ones with without a cone. I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. Now I'm going to bring in my back section. Make sure that your wire's running parallel. Get this tied in. Get a few good wraps in there. And I want this articulation cut down a little bit. So once my bead hits right here, I want it about half the distance of the bead. So my loop back here is half the distance or half the width of my bead. Take this up just shy of where I tied off my lead wire, and I'm going to fold these over. I'm going to have a nice transition between the two. There's going to be a little gap there, nothing major though, and those got a little bit long on me, so I'm going to cut these. I want those coming about halfway back my hook. Feels like I'm just flying through this pattern. There we go. Get those secured. Articulation wires in, your beads on there, your back hook's connected, everything's nice and clean. We're going to go back to the brown, and I'm going to tie this in. And this is 1 serving as a skirt, 2 serving as a little bit of a transition between the two. And I only want 3 wraps on this. 3 is the most I'll put on it. If I feel I have enough material with 2 wraps, I'll do it. I'll stop it at 2, but that feels a little bit sparse to me, so I'm going to go with a 3rd wrap. And cut that right there. Now, before I peel this back and marry this in to my back hook, I just want to pick this skirt out a little bit. I want to pick out any of the extra fibers that I can get. Get a couple in your nose too. Just peel that back, clean everything up, and go just slightly past the point of the hook, and that should marry those two in really well. Once this gets wet, it's just going to slick back, and you can see even when it's dry, it has that nice little transition between the two. We still have that thicker fiber, or that thicker body section right here, because of the end materials that are in this. It's not a straight palmered piece because of the dubbing brush, and that's going to marry into this back section to where we're not going to have, it's not going to cave in on itself. These fibers are going to come back. They're going to catch the bulk that this back section has, and if you could feel this, you could feel that once you run your fingers back like this, there's this bump that sits, and it stops about right here, and from there back it's just straight fiber. So when this gets wet, it slicks down to nothing. All of this is going to marry into and be one nice homogeneous piece, or one nice clean section all the way back. So now we're going to go back to what we did with the original pattern with the single hooked, and it's almost identical to that single hook section, only we're using this as a dubbing brush and not palmered material. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to loop this over, I'm going to tie my wire in. This is going to catch my Schlappen that's going to prop up my body material even more. And I'm going to make a dubbing loop, and this is where I'm going to go with the tan. Same thing as before, I'm going to stop just shy of my 35 thousandths. I'm going to clip my tool in here for the dubbing loop, and then I'm going to make a half hitch, and that's where I'm going to stop my tan thread, or my tan body. When this thing gets wet, it mainly disappears, the tan does. But when it gets wet, this tan just barely shines through, and it gives you that little bit of a mottled effect, and it really has a nice overall look to it. I'm going to get just a little bit more out of there because I felt that was a little sparse. There we go. We're going to throw this in our loop. Once again, keep this on the loose side. Don't wrap this so tight to where it's going to be segmented. You want to be able to work with this. You want it to be a nice smooth transition up to the front of this hook. So just work this to the front. There we go, nice picked out body. Now before we go back to another palmered piece, I want to go with tan Schlappen, and I didn't pick that up beforehand, so I'll get that now. Get the rest of my tan up there. You can go with brown Schlappen, you can go with the tan grizzly, whatever it is you really want to pick. I like the tan, I like the offset color on this a little bit more than I do something closer to the brown, but whatever looks good to your eye, that's really what matters. I mean, ultimately, are the fish going, you could tie a pink one in there, are the fish really going to matter or be too picky about that? I don't think. It's about what looks good to you. So we're going to get that tan Schlappen in there, and I'm just going to rip this to the back. I'm going to space these a little bit closer together than I typically would, like if I were doing a dungeon or a peanut. Well, looks like I might need the Hackle pliers on this one. There we go. Like I said, I'm going to get these a little bit closer together than I typically would on a Dungeon or a Peanut, Boogeyman, any of those ones that use this Schlappen for body. One little piece wants to keep getting in the way. There we go. Space these a little bit closer together. Take it all the way back to your Marabou. So now we have a nice prop for when we go and tie in this next section of Marabou. Now I'm just going to rip this through. This is red. You can use something closer to tan if you want. Really, you're not going to see much of it. So whichever color you pick. Red was the closest to me, so that's what I went with. There we go. Now you can see we have probably 1/4 of an inch of hook left between our Schlappen and our bead. Come back here and get this one little piece out. There we go. There we go. We're going to have that nice little prop section that's going to hold up our Marabou just slightly, so it's going to give us that nice taper that we're after. It's going to give us that nice leech looking appearance. If you want to on this one, you can go with just one piece of or one plume of Marabou. I have a pretty nice clean section of this brush that I built where I think I can get about 2 to 3 wraps on there without a ton of interference. If it's real bulky like this is up here to where you have a little bit more of the end trimmings in this section, it's tough to see, I know, but if you'll be able to just feel it. Like you run your fingers back there and that's a little bulky. I run my fingers through this and it's pretty consistent. There's really not a bump in there. I'm going to use this section, but if I didn't have that available, I would just palmer one piece right through there to where I still don't, to where I'm not going to interfere with the taper that I'm after on this design. I don't want a lot of bulk in the front. I want it to be pretty sleek. So right before this, I'm just going to take this 2 to 3 wraps at most. 3 would be the absolute most that I would put on here. Get one more in there. I'm going to call that good. I'm going to pinch this stuff to where I have a nice little gap. Work my thread through there and go right behind the bead, or right behind the Conehead. Same thing, I'm going to use the same thread path. I'm going to work through that, get that nice and secure. Flip this on the other side, cut that out of my way, and there we go. We've got this nice section of our Marabou brush that's going to just cover up that tan ever so slightly. And then I'm going to have, you can see how it covers that tan up pretty well. There's just a little bit sticking through. When this thing gets wet, it almost looks like it's two different flies. It really does. As it turns side to side, there's like that really nice mottled effect that you're after, and it really does. I mean, certain times when it kicks to one side, it's pure brown. It flips to the other side, or maybe it catches a little bit extra sun, and it's almost like you're fishing two different flies with the same pattern. So we're going to set this in here throw our straw on, and then I'm going to take, just to finish this off, I'm going to take a little bit of UV ice dub in brown. If you want to, you can do it with tan, whatever looks good to you. As always, there we go. Oh, started to grab the tan. Get that out of the way. We're going to take our brown here. And a little bit more. There we go. That might be a little too much. If I have to cut it short, I will. Just want to make sure that I have enough that's going to sink down in between that body and my cone. And we get one more wrap in there. Go. Clean that up. I'm going to take my bodkin through this. I just want to pick this out slightly. Whip finish. Go. Now I'm going to take, just tease this ice dub just a little bit, and you'll see when I pull this straw off, those UV fibers are just going to work their way back. They're going to be really subtle. They're going to blend into that tan that's back there. And it's going to give us that really nice mottled look to our fly. There's a little bit of extra tan coming out on that side, and you can see a little bit on this side. I got a little bit sparse with the material on this inside there. But when this gets wet, even on this side right here, when this gets wet, that tan's just going to shine through just slightly, and it's going to give that nice color contrast that you will see a lot of natural, not just leeches, but natural bait fish, schlappen, prey have. That very rarely do you see that one true pure black, pure olive, pure whatever. You have this mottled effect throughout the flies, and this really imitates it well, and it really imitates the taper that we're after as well. Give this thing a swim. Let me know what you think on this one, but I think this is probably one of the best leeches that I have come up with for sure. It's going to be one that I'll be having out on the market here before too awful long. Probably later this winter I'll have them out there in bulk. But as always, questions or comments, leave them with me. I'll get back to you. Thanks as always for watching. I really appreciate it, and we will catch you next Wednesday.